podcast channel playbook with AchieveUnite. We just realized we are starting year 2 of ours. My name is Teresa Carrigal. I'm the founder and CEO of AchieveUnite, and I'm broadcasting from Bermuda, which is amazing. So we're thrilled to be here with my family and to spend a great day with my friends. So with that, I'd like to introduce Miss Trisha Atchison. And if you could just do a little bit of an intro. You've started a new gig and you have a lot to share on market development funds.
Yeah, so hi everyone, Trisha Atchison. I am the VP of Global Partner and America's Marketing at Equinix. I'm on week 4, so this is definitely a new gig. Prior to Equinix, I spent several years at Citrix, a few years at CA Technologies, and then a long time at Symantec and Veritas. And I've been working on MDF for way too long, so this should be a fun discussion.
Oh, and Trisha, you're very humble, but you are one of my go-tos when it comes to really deep channel marketing expertise. And you gave us Sue Moynihan, and she's amazing. So thank you. We're glad to have you. Michael McCullough, welcome.
Hi, Teresa. Thanks. I'm a little bit jealous where you are. I think I'd rather be in Bermuda than in lovely Boston. So Michael McCullough, I run global channels and alliances for Imperva. We're a security company. So I've been here 2 years now. Before that, I spent 8 years at Akamai, where I had a similar type of job working in Asia, Europe, and Africa for different companies. So glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
We're glad you're here. And Michael, I remember first meeting and working with you, and it was, there's Sammy in the background, and it was all around the future of MDF. And I remember sitting in your office. So here we are a couple of years later.
That was a fun meeting. I remember that.
Yeah. Good. All right. My good friend, Angus Robertson, go ahead.
Thanks, Teresa. I'm a partner and CMO at Chief Outsiders. So we're fractional CMOs. I help build out channel marketing programs. And previously, I was CRO at Axient. We were just MSP focused. And prior to that, a lot of time in telecom. And similar to Michael, had a chance to work around the world working with system integrators and distributors.
Yeah, and you and I met when we worked together and did an amazing, fun engagement at Axient.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, it was. Mark Jones. We always pick on Mark Jones. I was telling the team here. So Mark Jones is an amazing, intelligent, just awesome person at AchieveUnite. And he's been doing a lot of research on this topic. So we wanted him to be a guest today. So go ahead, Mark.
Oh, great. No pressure to sound intelligent now. Yeah, thank you. That great introduction. Yeah, Mark Jones, senior consultant at AchieveUnite, spent a lot of time focusing on partner success across channel ecosystems. Partner investments are certainly critical to that. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Well, let's go for it. Let's open the conversation. We'll start with just what are you all seeing as it relates to partner investments? What's going on in the marketplace, especially as we evolve to the ecosystem? Influencers, not just transaction partners, retention partners. Trisha, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so big topic, right? And I think a couple of things. So from a partner investment standpoint, I think we're starting to look at that more broadly, right? So we talk a lot about MDF, and we can talk a little bit about how MDF is evolving, but I think that it's changing in terms of not just looking at, market development funds, but how are we investing in their business? So, we look at spiffs and rebates, we look at partner enablement, like we're looking at different things to sort of talk about that investment in a broader term. MDF is going through its own transformation, I think, in terms of, is it accrual based? Is it proposal based? There's a lot of change in terms of the financial side of it and the compliance side of it. So I think I talk about this all the time, like the partner ecosystem and the partner world is changing, right? Everything's changing. And so partner investment is kind of would have to be a big part of what's changing as well, right? Because the models are changing, the types of partners you're working with is changing, what you care about is changing in terms of what they value. So exciting times, right? But a lot of change.
A lot of change. Agreed. Michael, what are your thoughts as it relates to partner investments?
The investments are still coming. That's the great news. Yeah. I think the challenge is that the ROI is being a lot more scrutinized, maybe compared to the past. So the idea of seeing that this investment will yield X result by when. And so that's what I'm seeing, is that while we continue to invest, we're being a lot more careful and deliberate on what we expect from that investment and how to make sure that investment is focused on our partners, on our activities that's going to yield the highest result the soonest. There's a lot you can talk about this, but I think that's the key point for me, was about really making sure that investment is yielding a result within a time frame, because although dollars are out there, they are getting tighter, and people want to make sure that return on investment is happening sooner than later.
Yep. Yeah, and in order to get that return on the investment, you have to do really good planning up front. And yeah, Angus, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Michael and Tricia. Investment's still coming, and there's more of an ecosystem play. One of the clients I'm working with, they actually they have a threshold for getting into that sort of quarterly award, incentive award type scenario. But that applies not just to their own products, but their software vendor, but also to the third parties they work with. So when it comes to looking at the model and the margins, it becomes more complicated. But if you can set up that flywheel where that threshold's met, the investments are made, and the growth happens, and you understand the margins across the product mix, that can be very powerful. But there's more eyes on what's going on, and there's more complexity in understanding how that comes together.
Yeah, agreed. And Mark, why don't you talk about some of the research and what you see happening in this space?
Yeah, a lot of the research and best practices reflect kind of what the panel's been talking about. You hear the word investment a lot. Traditional MDF became tactical. It became almost an entitlement. It was part of how partners made their profitability. They didn't see it as driving incremental growth. So they didn't do anything to actually drive growth. They did things to get the money. So we're seeing a lot more focus on what that investment is. And it starts with a prescriptive approach about what we're trying to accomplish. So it's really driven by the objective, not by the activity. And we're seeing that in all of the forms that we're kind of talking about.
And we're seeing it be market, business, services, practice building, a much broader level of MDF, and the word M meaning market, meaning business, meaning strategic as well. All right, now this is my favorite question. So now let's talk about what are the pitfalls of MDF. And Michael, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, Mark kind of kicked it off. I think when organizations think of MDF as an entitlement, then sometimes the discipline needed to really get that return on investment can be challenging. So I think you have to be careful not to treat MDF as an entitlement or a given. I think the other thing is that try not to, while it's important how to allocate MDF, make sure that you don't spend so much time allocating your missed opportunities to really do the activities and invest in the things you want to invest in to drive growth. I mean, this is something I'm personally dealing with quite a bit with my channel team, is that we need to make sure while we spend enough time to look at the ROI and how we allocate the budget, let's not spend so much time that we lose opportunities to just really take advantage of the monies that are available to us. So no analysis paralysis, and then making sure that we don't think that money is a given. Yep.
That is so true. Great point. Angus, any thoughts? Pitfalls?
When you put all this effort and money and planning and alignment into a program, but then you don't have your partners use the MDF, or you don't have your partners use the MDF well, that can be very frustrating. There's a surprising amount of MDF that goes unused or unutilized. So how to manage that.
Great point. Trisha, pitfall.
I actually have two because I like scars and wounds from doing this for so long. The one I would say is the measurement side of it, right?
Okay.
I see a lot of organizations trying to measure MDF in the same vein they would direct marketing. It does not work that way. Partners do
Great
not
point.
operate that way. You want to leverage partners for the reach and scale and the engine that they bring, but you are going to lose some visibility, right? So I always say I'm going to die on this hill because I feel like organizations don't always understand that correlation, and they're trying to put a lot of things in place that are very similar to how you would manage direct, and that doesn't work. And then the second pitfall that I've seen come up more lately, and I thought maybe it was just in like the previous organization I was in or something like that, but I'm actually starting to hear this more and more from my peers, is around compliance. So what is allowable and how we use those funds has actually changed. And it's not the organization being difficult, it's actually tied to how those funds are classified and how we're allowed to use them. And so using them around government and public sector activities, there's a lot of issues with that, and there's a lot of defined like what's allowed, right? How much you're spending per head, right? Gone are the days where you're like, hey, like let's invite 20 partners and spend like $1 million to do whatever, right? And so that's been a big shift, and it's hard for your sales team sometimes because they're like, but we've always done these activities. I'm like, well, I do not look that good in orange, so I will not be doing activities, right? So, so I think I think you have to be very much a student of what's going on from an industry standpoint, so that you are, and working closely with your friends in finance and compliance, so that you're staying, in the right light with that, and not finding yourself in an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Channel chiefs need to have finance and legal be their partner in this, because it is a much broader, much more complex topic than, a straight bucket of OpEx often. Mark, we had a question from the audience. I'm going to ask you this, since you've been doing so much research for us on this topic. How do you recommend measuring ROI when it comes to partner enablement activities and sponsorships of, sales conferences? Any advice there?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is going to be defining the right objectives or the right outcomes. Traditionally, MDF is all about activities and leads and direct sales, and you can't always align it to that. So what we see some of the more progressive programs doing is measuring overall long-term partner success, right? So we can show that partners that we invest in these type of activities traditionally have a higher uplift in terms of overall partner success. So it's hard to tie it back to a specific activity, but if you can measure it and benchmark it in terms of long-term partner success, that's the best way to measure that ROI.
Absolutely.
And something tactical there with the scope, the sales kickoff, or the the industry conferences, those kinds of sponsorships. Are you getting to the audience you want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, are you getting more meetings? Are you getting more deal registrations? And the person who is, on the partner side, who's spending that money will know how to track those metrics.
Yeah, definitely. I am so excited about the level of engagement in the audience and the questions. So I do want to honor, because there's some really great questions. Are y'all okay if we go a little off topic from okay, awesome. I'd like to answer some of these. Here's another one. Trisha, you might have an opinion on this. Michael, attribution to MDF is a challenge, and it's increasingly a challenge if you're using it in influencer. How do you address and deal with attribution? Any thoughts on that?
Sure. It's hard. I mean, it's hard, right? Like you'll let me go first. I think so. I mean, I go back to, right, it is a bit of what Mark said in terms of looking at the bigger picture. I think it is understanding your ecosystem and then looking at where you're investing. One of the things I see, which it ties to MDF because we have partner enablement in there, but partner enablement is actually something that's coming to the forefront. Partners more and more, particularly as their models change. So if you think about MSPs, you think about influencers, you think of some of these other partner types, they're actually interested in some things that are different. And they're starting to value things like MDF or partner enablement more than just having marketing funds to go do activities. And so I think part of what you have to do, which is a bit what Mark said, is you actually have to look at your ecosystem and how you're going to market, and then what it is you're trying to get these partner types to do, and then how you invest in them. I think that we talk a lot about MDF. I think the term is a little overused and saturated. It means a lot of different things sometimes to different people. And I think going back to that investment model is important. Like one of the roles I had previously, we spent a lot of time looking at our partner types and how we invest in them and go to market with them. And it's different by type. And so if you're looking at influencer, you're looking at MSPs, you really have to align to what they value, and then what you value or what you're trying to get from them, and then establish what those objectives and measurements are.
Great answer. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Teresa, I could add real quick. So just the question of attribution is kind of a mindset issue, right? We want to see that an investment today equals sales tomorrow or next month. And it's about longer term investment. The old method of $10 in today gives me $50 of sales tomorrow is a sales funnel. We want to move to a sales flywheel where $50 of investment today equals $10,000 of return over the next year. So when you look at attribution, try to shift the conversation to how does it impact sales next month to how does it impact long-term sales. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And AchieveUnite talks about partner lifetime value, right? How do we invest in partners and create them over the lifetime and look at their business and their growth with you over the entire lifetime? Okay, next question. And Vanessa must have known that this was the next question because she's asked the question and we were going to ask this question too. The process, the arduous MDF process. What are your thoughts, Angus, on the MDF process and what should happen, what is happening, the over-engineering?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the other question and what Mark said too. If you can find a model that fits the goals that you have from an outcome standpoint, are you focused more on enablement? Are you focused more on demand generation? Then you can really make sure that works. For example, in demand generation side, I liked what Mark said about flywheel. I really like that type of model where have the partner prove that they can sell. Once they can prove that they can sell, give them some kind of fund or incentive. And Tricia and I were talking offline, but you can then engage a simplified list of offerings with marketing concierge services. So you've got focus based on product market fit and where things work. And then you have resources, best practices, money, and then you get that additional growth and money coming back. And you can compare the partners in your program against the partners not in the program and just look at that delta. So simple models like that, where you apply a very focused effort and you help guide the partner based on what works from a co-selling and co-marketing standpoint, I think can be really effective and simplify a lot of that challenge.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. We're also seeing to this point around pre-approved programs. We as AchieveUnite are doing more programs in what I would call this partner engagement bucket. And so getting the partner and the reps working at a much deeper level will accelerate their funnel, will accelerate the revenue, will accelerate. So not just in this lead generation category. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well. Anybody else want to comment
Yeah,
on?
I like
I was just
Michael, please.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. So for me, I look in a few buckets. One is the policy. What's eligible to use MDF for? You have to have a policy.
Yes.
I had a colleague once told me you don't want to have everything that you can't do in the policy, but try to be as generic as possible. But it's not 1,000 pages, but it's clear enough. The second is funding. You know, how do you get the funds? Is it accrual based? Is it contra revenue? Getting that funding is critical because, to Trisha's points, it determines how it gets accounted for in finances. Third is planning, and for us, one of the biggest things on planning is we don't want to start with the marketing plan. We want to start with what's the sales goals, and then how does marketing support those goals. Next one is execution. So we have a pre activity and a post to make sure that while we invested those monies, do they yield the results? And then finally, that whole measurement. You know, I'm dating myself. I still like Six Sigma. I still quote Six Sigma. I'm not sure how many people know what Six Sigma is anymore, but the idea of being able to measure and improve, so that as we look at these kind of big activities, big processes, that we're able to adjust and modify so we make it better and smoother to get to the funds to the people who are going to drive the yield the quickest. And so those are the big things we've done. I've got a great business partner, Kristen Grenier, on channel marketing for me. I keep telling her, I'm the bank. You're making sure it gets spent properly.
That's
right.
That's
how we work together. That's how we work.
You have a good partnership with Kristen. That's fantastic. I loved your group. You know, it's funny. We talk about becoming as vendors need to really adopt a partner-centric DNA, and I can read their MDF guidelines and I can know within seconds what on the realm of DNA where they sit and what we have to work with them on. So good.
Lisa, did you see the question from Bill? So are suites at Lakers game a thing of the past?
What's your thought on that, Angus or Mark?
I think Michael and Tricia had some thoughts on that from our conversation before. Yeah.
Anybody go into the suite?
So those nobody likes people spending money on that stuff anymore. It's a harder and harder sell. And it actually goes back to what I talked around compliance and the cost per head and some of those things that are coming into play. You know, I always use the analogy, like, sure, like, let's just invite everybody to sit like in the dingy basement or my driveway, and that'll be compelling to like come to an event. So there's some kind of balance in there. But, you know, there's probably been some abuse on some of that over time too. I think there's a lot of chatter around events. And I think that understanding where they fit into your plan, how you're going to use them, they're definitely, you know, ramping back up, right? Because with the pandemic, nobody was going anywhere and everyone was doing everything digitally. But I do think that the digital piece is still important. And, you know, Angus referenced the concierge service and kind of engaging with your partners. I also think one of the models we've used is more of like an agency model where you work a little more directly with some of your maybe partners that don't have as much marketing savvy organization, but are really invested with you. And so you're helping them to be more digitally minded and driving a digital strategy. So I think events have a place. I think some of those higher end events, I think they're a harder sell these days because, you know, unless you have a good mechanism for tracking ROI and tracking pipeline and things like that, there's also the concern of how you're influencing customers and deals and things like that. So you have to sort of balance that with what's acceptable in your organization.
Yeah, I agree. I do see post-COVID, people are so hungry to connect that these experiences can be very powerful. But to your point, they all have to be done in the realm of kind of the box we all live in. Yeah. Michael, you look like you were going to say something on this.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Yep.
Okay.
Because the events, everyone is so much excited by going to events, but they're far between as far as how do we measure the success of those events sometimes.
Yeah.
And my team makes fun of me. I'm not a great golfer. And Teresa, you know this as well. But the idea is you don't have to use MDF for a golf event unless it's a really compelling activity or they know I'm not going to show up. So that's something I need to do.
But But I do hear you're a mean baseball player,
Oh,
so
sorry.
you might let him go to the baseball game, huh there, Mr. McCullough?
It depends. It depends if my Astros are playing. So there you go.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Exactly.
For those of you that don't know, did you play professional ball?
Come on, Teresa. No, it's not, yeah, a long time ago. I played a long time ago.
College
A
ball.
long time ago. Yeah, I played for the
A
Rangers.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just imagine. We'll have to get your pictures out and show everyone. So Dessa had a great question, and then we'll go on to the last one, which is what are the trends and the future in this. But how do you separate MDF and BDF, or do you? Any thoughts on that, Mark? From your research, what did you see?
Yeah, it's really about having a cohesive partner investment strategy, right? MDF is different than BDF, and it's part of the trends. You know, we're seeing MDF, BDF, solution development, competency development, partner enablement, customer lifecycle funds. So there's a lot of ways to invest it, and traditionally, companies wanted to invest with partners, but MDF was the only mechanism to do it. So they forced it into that mechanism, and that's creating problems. So the key is to create a cohesive partner investment strategy and figure out what investments belong in what programs.
Great, Mark. Thank you. Let's keep going on this topic. What are you all seeing from a trends perspective? Maybe leading edge things, bleeding edge things you're seeing out there. Let's chat on that. These are always my favorite too, fun conversations. So Trisha, you want to start us off?
Sure. So there's two kind of things in my world that I'm seeing. One is that we have tended to be very focused at the beginning of the sale. And now with, being in a recurring revenue model, right, being subscription, adoption, and that whole customer life cycle becomes really, really important. And so where we used to invest and it was all about just getting the new logo, now we're seeing where the adoption piece is just as important as finding the new logos, right? Because you can't have everything falling out of the back end. So
100%.
that is definitely shifting that motion, even with partners and some of the things that they're looking at and think about. The other piece is I think that the partner ecosystem is changing. And if you look at some of the work that like the hyperscalers are doing and some of these larger organizations, they are changing not only the shape of the ecosystem, but they're changing how customers buy. And so you have customers who are parking money in marketplaces. You have, which changes the journey, right? And so as a marketer, you have to know like how to get to those customers. You have to know how your partners are going to play in that ecosystem. And so I think it's exciting, but I think it's going to be a lot of change in terms of what we're going to see from an overall ecosystem and how that evolves.
Yeah, a lot of room for innovation in this space right now. A lot of room for innovation. Yep. Michael, what are you seeing from a trend standpoint or something you predict will happen?
Well, two things. One is back what Tricia said is that the ideal of, before it was about quantity and opportunities, we're seeing more about quality. So there's more dollars being invested to make sure that that customer actually buys.
Yes.
The top of the funnel is important, but that mid funnel is becoming more and more a priority. So doing activities to help nurture the customers who've already shown an intent to buy is becoming more important. The second thing that I'm seeing, which might be a little bit unique in our space, the cybersecurity market is quite crowded. So we're having to spend a lot more money to market to partners to get them excited about our products. Before it was always to the end customer, and we're going to continue to do that. It's really important. But we're also having to establish relationships a little bit more with our partners to help them get excited about what we bring different. And that's a little bit harder ROI, to be honest. But we're saying that that's becoming really a requirement because the space is just so crowded, and vendors really, partners are really trying to decide what vendor they want to kind of really go deep with. And so we're having to put money there. That makes sense.
Yeah, we were just working on something for a client, and it was really about value beyond the products and services you sell. Yep. Really value about helping these partners with their overall business priorities, which will ultimately translate back to you. But it's very counterintuitive for most of us that grew up in the space of a product world. And so I think you're dead on in that. And I think that's actually a big part of a trend is this this shift in helping them grow their business, and it will come back to you, you know, but that's even harder to measure, right?
That's true.
So yeah, predict. You heard it here first, you guys. All right, Mark Jones, give us a trend, baby.
Yeah, we got 1 minute left, so I'll be quick. Focus on long-term partner success, create sales flywheels instead of sales funnels.
Love it. Good job, Mark. Angus.
The platform play and PE looking to consolidate in the markets that they invest in. How do they dominate that market, and then bring in those tech partners and those reseller partners just to accentuate and amplify that, and really fund the growth, fund the profit, and fund that up and cross, so you have that sort of long-term life cycle value.
Awesome. Great job. Anybody else want to close on any other trend? All right. Enablement's the new currency. Demand generation. Platforms are key. We see a lot of platform people here. So we believe in our platforms. Those automate a lot of things. Well, you guys did a great job. I promise you I will send you a video of the boating excursion around Bermuda this afternoon. So I'll even post it on LinkedIn. I'll take a good video of it. And have a great...
How generous of you, Teresa.
Rub it in more. Rub it in more. Thank you.
LinkedIn Live is here in Bermuda. Yeah. All right. Have a great day. Bye, all. Thank you.
Thank you.